And we just started meeting and just praying and talking about where we thought God wanted to take us. So this deep and wide concept that Andy Stanley talked about was a book he wrote, and a book truly that I have just internalized, because I love the concept of deep and wide. When you talk about a wide scope, that really out of those 200,000 people in our county, and if you think about it, literally 100,000 of them never think about going to church. Sunday and their week is not spent thinking about God. Think, you know what? We want to have a wide reach. We want to try to do the best we can to reach out to 100,000 people. But we also want to have depth to us, where we say, you know what? We're going to help you go somewhere in your walk that is deep. We can't personally take you there because God is the one who does the growing in you, but we want to build environments and create opportunities for people to grow deep and to have a wide scope. Well, like you saw those numbers, about 200,000 in the county, 50% that don't go to church. And you know what? Those numbers each have a name. And I tell you what, each of those names have a story. So since we've been open and we see some of these names come through the door, for me, it incredibly personalizes it. When we think about those numbers, those are really people. And so we went into last summer, we started something we called vision gatherings. I said, we didn't have a name yet. We were just vision for Gaston. We didn't know what God wanted to do with us yet. So first we went out to Bit of Hope Ranch. See, we got some pics up here. Where we went out to the ranch, and it was fun. We pulled a big trailer in there and got some people up on stage playing music, and we had some food and just some neat stuff out there at the ranch. We kind of like went public for the first time and said, God has put something in our heart to reach out and be something different. So we went from Bit of Hope over to Weston Acres Swim Club. And if you were there that day, you saw guys like Wayne Gamble cannonballing off the pool and splashing water everywhere and kids playing. And we had music and we had fun. And actually, one of the neighbors even called the police, they said, because it was too loud. And we're like, hey, you know, we're having fun together and we'll turn it down a little bit, but we are excited about what God is doing in what was called Vision for Gaston. Then we went out to Stowe Park in Belmont and had a blast out there that day. And we kept seeing more and more new faces. People coming up to us just saying, we hear you guys are doing something, some type of a different kind of church. What are you doing? We said, come on over and hear about it. And we'd have fun out there. And if you remember, we had some blindfolds going on and had some games with it. But in that, we had a common thread of purpose of telling people that we were going to be a church that strives to be intentional. That we don't want church just to be an hour slice of your week. We want it to be something that really is a catalyst to help you grow in your walk with God. So we came out of Stowe Park, and we were continuing to build momentum. We'd gone from 6 families to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24, and we were getting up to this spot where we had 25, 30 families, and we faced really some kind of big decisions. Last August, the story of this building was amazing, how we looked at a couple dozen places. Because from the start, I prayed and asked God, I said, God, if it's possible that we don't go the route of what you call being portable, where if you don't know what that means, it means either on Saturday night or Sunday morning, you go into a school or a movie theater or a restaurant and you unload all these chairs and unload all these kids' equipment and you have church that morning and then you load them back up, put them in a trailer, and you put it all away and you go back home. And I said, God, I want us to use our energy to always keep moving forward, steps forward. So we started looking, actually 2 parcels down, there was 5,000 square feet, and we looked at it, and those of you who were involved in the process at that time, we got there and looked and felt like, man, it just feels too small. And I brought in my friend Arthur Mace from New River Church in Lake Wylie. He looked at it and said, man, we would have killed to have this space. When we started 15 years ago, no joke, they started off in Lucky Lisa's Casino Hall. And they went into Lucky Lisa's, and it closed down, but you could still smell the smoke and the alcohol. But they went in there and they started a church. They had a closet, literally, that was for the kids, and the middle part of Lucky Lisa's, and he came in and said, man, 5,000 square feet, that's incredible. I said, Arthur, I know it's incredible, but it just doesn't feel like the right size for us, because we have visions of more kids coming in, more people coming in. So we prayed about it, and I think God wanted to see in us the humility to say, God, if this is what you want for us, we'll take it. And so we prayed about it, but also let the landlord know, said, if the dance spot opens up or karate opens up, we want first shot at it. And about 2 weeks later, as we were just starting to negotiate for the smaller space, he called me up and said, the karate guy wants to move. And I remember specifically driving home that day, and I said, God, that's a game changer. It is totally a game changer that this space which is 10,000 square feet. And our friend John Evans back there, he'd come to karate here and he said, Matt, if it ever becomes available, this place lays out great for a church. And it came available. We came in and walked through it. Oh man, our eyes got big. We got excited. It's like, okay, God, we could get in here and not have to do a lot to get started. But we had to pray. And reality, and this is part of tonight, is I can be more authentic with you guys tonight than I can be on Sunday mornings. Because, on Sunday mornings, ideally, we've got people sitting in here that are unchurched. And they're coming in to try us out, and I can't say things like this. We had to pray about whether to sign on a $300,000 commitment on this lease. We had to get guarantors to sign on that. I didn't even know what that meant until we saw it on the lease. And we had 4 families that said, you know what, we'll sign on that. We will put our name on the fact that if for some reason this doesn't work, we will honor that lease. So we prayed and wrestled with that and felt like that the risk level God wants to take was to go ahead and step into space. So September 1st, we started a lease in this space. We started meeting every other Sunday with something that we called training camp. And we got in here and we were doing renovations, and you can see we're taking stuff off the walls and we're scraping stuff, and it was great to see guys like the Hill Boys. They're like, when do I get a sledgehammer? And I was like, Julian, not yet. There will be a day to use a sledgehammer. But seriously, we're taking stuff down and we're scraping floors, and honestly, just saying, God, we can't believe you would give us space like this. And we're putting our own sweat equity in it. If you remember, Alicia, the first cleanup day, we had people bringing in so many supplies. I think we ended up with like 6 brooms and like 4 buckets and all these cleaning supplies. It was just incredible. Just we didn't even know this term yet, but the ownership feel already was starting to flow. And people said, I want to be a part of building something. So we went through training camp. Every other Sunday we met in here. And we went through topics that helped shape us in terms of serving and giving and loving people and how we were going to reach out to our community. I said, guys, this isn't the time to invite friends yet. This is not the time to reach out to your lost friends, because we need to train and we need to prepare for what God wants us to do. So we went every other Sunday, and during the week we're having meetings. We're starting to raise up leaders. We're doing all kind of stuff where we're trying to get ready for an adventure that was in front of us. Now, throughout the fall, we started some things for our students. And it was interesting with our students, because how many of you guys, raise your hand if you have a student, a middle or a high schooler in your family? It was amazing how God showed us that we were supposed to start student ministry. Because even this week, when I emailed my friend at New River, my friend at Ridge Church, said, when did you guys start student ministry? It was a couple years in. They would bring their students into worship and let them serve. They didn't do anything strategically for students because they just didn't have the critical mass to do it. And here we are, last fall, already going back out to the ranch. We're having Christmas parties. We're doing all kind of stuff with our students because clearly God was bringing middle and high schoolers our way. It was so fun, man. We'd go out there and see these students inviting their friends. We'd see guys like Richard James walk up, who I had not seen in like a decade. I thought he was Grace's date. If you know Grace and Richard, I was like, hey, who's your date? She's like, that's my brother Richard. And it was so neat to see these students bringing family members, bringing friends. So with our students, we're at the ranch. We have a student event. We head into December, and we're having our lead up to Christmas, even though we're still not a church yet. So we said, you know what? We'll take a faith step, and we'll have a Christmas Eve service. And we came in here on Christmas Eve. Let me see my order here. I got Christmas services leading up to it, and then our kids' Christmas party, I think is that next. Man, we took what used to be called the wall ball room, which is next door to us there, because the boys would go in there and play wall ball before and after training camp, and they go in there, our team, and makes this room look incredible for a Christmas party. Kids are in there, making gingerbread churches and ornaments and all this stuff, and I was like, God, it is incredible what happens when you plant a vision in someone's heart. And it was God who planted that. That wasn't me who did it. God did it. So we're having a Christmas party for the kids. We're having services leading up to Christmas, our training camp, and then we say, we're going to have a Christmas Eve service. We come on in, and it was beautiful. We had communion set up, Jason, and we came in, and you see some of the Christmas pics. We had Mike, woo, on the beatbox, and the team singing, and we had a message. We had, of course, this is the highlight of the night, was having those kids sing. They brought down the house, and we loved hearing kids sing, and Mario up there with his bow tie looking good. And we went through the Christmas season, and again, my pastor friends were like, "You're doing a Christmas Eve service, you're not even open yet." I said, "You don't understand. These people love to get together. They love to come together and say, you know what, it's okay if at that point, the walls are still messed up, and I'll show you, I think, a picture here in a minute, or maybe we saw that we moved this pipe. They had this big old silver pipe on the wall, and big old, remember the red stripe? It's easy to forget the red stripe now. We had that red stripe for about 3 or 4 months on that wall, but it didn't matter. People just came together and said, man, this is our church that we're building. God is letting us be a part of this. So we go into January. We got other renovations that were going on. And here we got painting going on here. It was incredible. We had a 3-week period where, first of all, a company came in, took this big old silver pipe that was up here, took it down, moved it over here, put a bend in it for free. Another company came in, and they painted all the walls in here and the hallway and did all that for free. We had volunteers coming in and knocking out all the inner parts of the painting. There's Julian. Either a paintbrush or a sledgehammer is always going to be in that boy's hand. And we had just teams coming in, just having fun. I said, man, this is great. And I said, we worked hard. Let me tell you, January, we worked hard. If you were here for any of those Saturdays, I advertised it, said 9 to 12, and then we'd get pizza, and it'd go to about 2, 3, 4 o'clock. But you know what? It was just great. We're just in here, again, just sweat equity in this place we call Vision. Great to see you guys. So we go through January. We're doing these renovations, and next up we got we had student activities going on. Even with this rough building, we're like, you know what? We're getting these students in here. We're meeting with them, and then we go on to creating our ministries. And I love that actually at one of our events after church one day, it was kind of like an informal, what do you think we should name some of our ministries? And actually, it was Elena High who came up with Viz Kids. I love that name. Said, that is hers. Hopefully she doesn't trademark it, or pay her rights for it. I say, you know what, Viz Kids, that's us. And inside that name, you got our preschoolers, and their large group is Camp First Sight. And then back here, you got our elementary, and it's Camp Trailblazer. And you know what? It just felt right. And then we said, how about these students? What do we want to do in our students' lives? And it was so natural. We want to ignite something. We want it to happen in our students' hearts, where they come into church and they leave here with something that ignited them with the passion of Jesus. So we named our ministries, got those up and running, and then you'll see we needed a lot of people to do this. Because as I started on this, my friend Chris Brown at Ridge in Charlotte said 3 things. He said, Matt, it's going to be harder than you ever think. It's going to take longer than you ever think, but it's going to be more worth it than you can ever imagine. And I tell you, the harder part, we get into this, I always call it like lifting a piano, that we just need a lot of people to lift a piano. So, in fact, what we started doing is we started building up teams and raising up leaders. Now, I know you probably can't get every piece of this, but I'm going to refer to this twice tonight. So let me give you a quick run-through of what things look like here at Vision. Because first of all, you've got our elder team, John, Mike, and Keith. These are the guys basically that I report to. They are representatives of our congregation. They're not paid. And they, in fact, they receive the pulse of our church. They get to hear the pulse of our church. And the way I look at them specifically is they are the rails that keep us on track toward our vision. So that someday, when there's another lead pastor, 10, 20, 30 years from now, there'll be elders that will continue to keep those rails in place so that Vision Church goes the way that God wants it to go. So you got our elders, I'm lead pastor, and then you break us down, and the middle part is really key, is our family ministry, which I'll talk about this more a little bit when we talk about serving. But we have a philosophy here called Orange, which is a partnership between the church, which is yellow, symbolized by yellow, and the family, symbolized by red, and you put those two influences together and they make orange. So family ministry starts in preschool. You'll see that team is led by Caroline Moon, and Alicia Starr heads up production. And then you go to our elementary age, headed by Kim Thorpe. And then the Mans, they double team Meredith. She's got production, and Scott has got small groups. We've got incredible teams in those age groups, and then our students, and you'll see the colors, and Debbie Arnett on our admin team designed this. The colors actually represent the colors that are name badges. And so you'll see that our red headed up by Kier High, and he's got his team with Julie Hill in admin, Tabitha, his wife in production, and then Julie also is our small group coordinator, and we've got actually a leadership team, about 8 to 10 people on there. And what you'll see, just aside of that, the production coach, Tabitha, who does a lot with our team up here on Sundays, she in fact is our production director in here, and she's our production coach in every other environment we have that's produced. And again, none of these people are paid. Then you go to the left side, you see Vision Church Ministries, our prayer and care ministry. Wayne Gamble heads up our care team, which meets back there, and we're in the process of actually designing a care room that's a little more private on Sunday mornings for people who want prayer. Our prayer team is headed up by Julie Hill. Our outreach ministry was headed up by Karen Bates, but they moved back to Maryland, so that's vacant right now. And then underneath that, we got some things we're building. Our Invest and Invite team, if you know Natalie Parker, that's totally her. She loves helping people know how to build relationships with people, to invite them to church. And then Jamie Wallace is heading up our school project, which is going to come out of the ground actually in August, but we'll talk about it more toward the end of school year, as we're going to have a partnership with Southwest Middle School, where we will go on that property and love on those people and say, you know what, we want to bless your teachers and your administration and your families and your students, and we don't want anything in return, we just want to bless you. That's part of our outreach. Then you guys down there, spiritual growth, and you'll see Natalie's name again, because she is all about small groups, and in time, we'll build a men's and women's ministry. Across from that on the other side, you'll see our adult production, like I said, headed up by Tabitha, broken down into Tabitha does music, Matthew Postel does technology, and John Evans is our producer. And then our host teams, which is so much the lifeblood of our church. I tell people all the time that the sermon at Vision Church, it starts in the parking lot. So that when someone rolls in there and sees Chuck out there with his team, and Chuck Hill knows that heart behind it is so important, that people come on this property and they see from our host team director is Mike, and underneath him there's Chuck. We got our greeter team, our next steps, our first time guest team with Wendy, and Paul's wife Penny with next steps. We built a host team ministry so that people feel loved on. Now, if you ever go somewhere where you've never been there before, you remember how awkward it is. And we have to remember every Sunday, someone's coming on this property who feels that way. So we want to be strategic to design ministry that meets them at their point of need. And then last down there at the bottom, you see our Vision Church support team. My wife Meg is the creative director, which helps us all our environments to be as creative as possible. Mike Starr heads up our building grounds. Our Fellowship One and admin team is Marie Evans, Julie Cook, Debbie Arnett. We're looking to fill our clean team, which comes in every Saturday to clean. Communications, still looking to fill that spot, and Jay Russell heads up finance. When you look at that, I want to remind you, besides myself, who gets a part-time salary, nobody else on that whole screen gets paid. It's phenomenal what God has already built in terms of leadership and teams around those people. And so I think sometimes people say, gosh, man, are you getting your hands in too much stuff? Are you doing too much? I say, you know what? There's a lot of people helping carry that piano. And you know what? I may err sometimes and say, hey, Mike, is this covered? This whatever? He's like, I got it. Sweet. Trust you. Like, Tabitha, is this ready? It's good. But you know what? I do that because I care. Because you know, Meredith, when your next door neighbor comes, who's never been to church before, and they walk in, you are hoping it's the best Sunday of the year for Vision Church. And that's my goal, is that every Sunday is the best Sunday of the year for Vision Church. So those are our teams. Let's see, flip on down through there to, we haven't got to launch day yet. I mean, all the stuff we told you. Now we move on to launch day, January 25th. You can see the environments we created there, and a couple more looks at that. You go through our kids area, you see our adult space, and January 25th, it was amazing that God had given us all these type of environments. Look at Meredith, a nice purple look there, and our kids back there singing. So what we created was a place that we felt like that unchurched people would love to attend. So we go through our first series, saw Blueprint. Our second series is Alias. Our third series we're about to finish up this week called Danger Zone. And you know, these aren't just random names where it's like a bucket you just like pull topics out of. We have, at least in loose form, Every Sunday for the rest of the year, we have blocked out what we're going to talk about. We have strategically thought series by series what we want to accomplish to have balance in our year, to have depth, but also to have enough felt needs where people feel it, but there is truly balance where people say, man, they're doing a series I can invite some people to. This is teaching us stuff. So it took us through those series. We went through our first Easter, all this whole time. We got students. Let's see, we got some student pictures coming up. We're there at 180 weekend. There's Kier, our student pastor, loving on those students. We have ignition events. We got student teams singing. We got our communicators like Ken up there. We got Mike rallying the troops right there. Wow, looking good. And this here is Chaos Lady. For the month of May, we got Grace dressing up like Chaos Lady because we're going through chaos. Then other little things that went on. We had Plugged In, which is our volunteer event. There's Meredith again singing for us. And we had some wins we told that night. We had team breakouts and some good training and encouragement going on that night. And then you flip on over, we went to Palmapalooza, which that whole area again had just been taken over by preschool and elementary kids to have a great launch into Easter. We're seeing just a ton of kids back there. And then we roll into, that's the other part of Palmapalooza, telling the story of Palm Sunday. We had a student lock-in. All these students came in here and spent the night and had special moments, I tell you, where we settled things down a little bit and let them think about spiritual topics. And then we flipped on to just recently just had the hike, built an altar out there at Crowder's, had some fishing going on, let the students know we care about them. And you know what? You get through all that stuff and you realize we've only been open for 4 months. That's about, I don't know, 18 Sundays. I got stuff back this week from some of my friends, from Arthur in New River and Chris at Ridge. And I'll tell you in a minute about how that kind of fits with other church plans. They say, man, it doesn't make sense. I did want to, we're going to talk about a couple wins. And I tell you what, actually, we'll do that when we come back in from desserts. Because I got a couple people who will share, but I want to finish going through some of this info. So where we're at is we've been open about 4 months. We got on average about 125 people on campus each week, and which is great, because I told our team that at Ridge, and again, this is a strategic partner of North Point, Ridge Church, they hit the 100-person mark after they were open for 18 months. New River, they were at the 100 to 150-person mark for 5 years. So we're 4 months into this, 100, and we'll fluctuate, 110, so we've been up to about 160, but it basically has averaged out about 125 each week. That breaks down to our first-timers. We have on average about 4 first-time households every week that come in and check us out. We have, in our Viz Kids area, those two areas, about 40, with the kids, everybody working back there, about 40 people. Our Ignite, when we get these kids in here for ignition every other Sunday night, we have on average 30. We've actually peaked at 40, which is crazy. When I tell people in other churches, we got 40 students already. And then in terms of volunteers, on Sunday mornings, it takes about 30 volunteers to make it all happen. And then this is interesting. When I looked at how many volunteers it takes to make it run during the week, and I'm not talking about the team leaders. I'm talking about people that count, talking about people that come in here and clean, people that have production team meetings and all these other things. It actually takes about 25 volunteers during the week to do what we do. Now, our finances. And again, this is stuff that I can't talk about on Sunday morning. So I appreciate you being here. And because here at Vision, we had forecasted that we need about a budget of about $10,000 a month to get off the ground and keep going. $10,000 a month, and I'll tell you how that breaks out here in a second. So our monthly budget needs about $10,000, and when I averaged January, February, March, April, what we've had given, we've actually had an average of $11,300 each month given. That's great. And the cool thing, a couple of those months, we've had some people who don't even go here that call me up and say, Matt, we love what we're doing, what you're doing, and we want to support it. And I was like, really? I mean, that's God tapping somebody on the shoulder and saying, you're going the right direction. I want to support that. Now, in terms of our spending, I'll give you some big strokes at where it goes. So about $10,000 a month is our budget needs. And where we're sitting today, we've got about 1 month worth of savings in the bank. So I feel like that's a good buffer. It's not where we want to be. I want to be where we have at least 3 months in the bank. We got 1 month. But in terms of our spending, we spend about 40% of our budget each month on our lease. We spend about 20% a month on our staffing. Now, to make sure you're not complicated all of that, I'll break this down real easy. And again, a small environment like this, I feel like I can share and be real transparent. 20% of $10,000 is $2,000. So you got to put the numbers together pretty quick that we only got one paid staff member and $2,000. Now, not to like reveal like all my past, but the reality is I used to make 2 to 3 times that in my previous job. But I believe in what we're doing, so much so that actually me and Megan, our family, we're pulling out of savings each month. She runs a nonprofit called Bit of Hope Ranch. We put these beans together and we spend the beans where we can. And you know what? We need some more beans. We're pulling out of savings and retirement, saying, God, you got this. You got it. Now, the rest of our budget, about 20% of it goes to utilities and maintenance with lights and water and fixing stuff up and all that. And then the other 20% is what's left in the bucket, basically for ministry and outreach. So when Kim calls you up and says, man, if we could get one more microphone back there, I was like, we'll do it. And Caroline, she's like, we need a couple of these things. I'm like, we'll do it. I virtually never say no. Sometimes I say wait. Now for the guys in the back, there's definitely longer waits because you guys got bigger. You guys got bigger, gifts you ask for back there. But they do great with what we've got. They really do. So that's how we bring it in. That's how we spend it. Jay Russell and our finance team, they count it, they deposit it. It's tremendous that I don't want to be a part of handling that stuff. And when somebody gives me something, I get it out of my hands as soon as I can. Because I love those guys. Take care of it. All right, so what about other church plants? How do we compare? Because you know what? I'm a competitive guy. That's why I had a couple questions there about basketball. I'm a competitive guy. So I'm like, how do we know if we're winning? And honestly, it's not to compare. But you know what? Sometimes it does help to look at other trends in church planting to see if we're going the right direction. So what about other church plants? First of all, I talk about launch team. Our launch team, we launched with about 30 families, which is tremendous. Some of these churches, they start with like 50 people. We started with about 100. With our facilities, in 10,000 square feet, at Ridge, they got their first building halfway through year 4, and at New River, they got their first building in year 5. So we opened in a building and said, you know what, it's worth that risk to spend on a lease and get in a building. In terms of our students, you can tell that we're off the charts. In terms of our overall growth, what I had told our launch team is that, you know what, we'll start at a certain spot and see a little bump and a drop, and then a slow rise. And you know what? Right now, we're in a slow rise. We're great. I'm very pleased with the amount of people we see each week coming in to try our vision. The reality is, when summer hits, we'll see a dip, both in attendance and in giving. And that's part of my ask tonight. So, hey, be faithful in giving. Because as you're faithful in giving, then we don't have to pull back on ministry. Then you continue with people coming to Christ. Now, when I talked to Chris at Ridge, I said, Chris, honestly, I thought we'd open the doors, and we'd see people flocking in here. Hundreds of people and dozens coming to Christ. He's like, Matt, what were you thinking? He said, what you're trying to do is the hardest thing in the world. I mean, you're taking people that don't even think about God, and you're trying to, number one, get them to think about church, then come to church, then accept Christ. He said, man, it's a long journey. He said, don't be sprinting. It's a marathon. And in fact, Chris said in their whole first year, they had 3 people come to Christ in 12 months. I said, okay, that makes you feel a little better. Because that's why we're here. I mean, our mission truly to lead people to Christ, see them live out God's vision. That's why we're here. Arthur said the same thing. He said, man, it's a long, slow process to where now New River, they're seeing 50 people a year come to Christ. It's incredible. He said, man, those first couple of years, you had to stay focused on the vision. And our vision is to create a church that unchurched people would love to attend. So we're going after that vision. Now, The second piece about looking forward, I don't know a lot about farming, but something about tomatoes, it kind of interests me. And we take a look at these pictures of this tomato plant. Have we got anybody in here who plants tomatoes? I'm just not good at that kind of stuff. But when you look at this picture we got, tomato plants, it's coming. When you think about tomato plants, they go through a growth process. And when you look at it, how about the previous one? There we go. So you look at that one on the left, and I'd say we're probably the second one. The one on the left is what we were growing all last year. We were like getting, putting it in the ground and getting ready and kind of starting to burst something. And then we, just in January, started seeing some leaves come out. We're just starting to kind of get our wings under us. And you know what? Maybe this year we'll go to there and maybe there. And we don't know what the tomatoes look like for us. But I want to encourage you, if you or someone says to you, man, where's the tomatoes at Vision Church? And one thing I'll say is, you know what? We're not a mega church. We're not an established church. We're just a young little tomato plant that's going to work the process so we grow tomatoes in God's timing, in God's way. So on the next slide, when you see a beautiful red tomato, you know that didn't happen overnight. That didn't happen in days. It happened in God's timing. And that's where I need to hit the brakes sometime and move back and say, okay, God, in your time, in your way. And we see God working as we grow slowly in our leaders and our people and all the in-depth pieces we're trying to help people grow in. That's our look at tomatoes. Now, I cannot see the clock, but I know this is probably taking longer to communicate this than I thought, but I'm enjoying it. I hope you guys are enjoying it. But I'll go a couple more minutes on this, and then we'll get dessert. So how is Vision Church different? You'll see in our yard signs, 3 words that for this season we're coining. Real, relevant, and community. Yes, I answered Dave's question. Great. That's what I want to do. I want to answer your questions ahead of time. Because when people say to you, hey, so what's different about Vision? Man, there's tons of churches in this town. I'll say, first of all, we haven't got it figured out, but I'll tell you 3 things about us. We're going to be real, so that people will come in here and they'll say, you know what, I feel like that pastor and the people in that church are authentic. That they're not putting on a show, they're not trying to put on a plastic face, that they're going to say they've thrown the remote controls and they've kicked the dog or they've done whatever or they messed up this week, and they're real. And that's in all of our environments. The second thing is we're relevant. That people would not come in here and leave and say, hey, that was pretty nice and shiny, but man, I got no idea how that affects my week. Because you know what? When those kids leave from back there and they realize the truths that we're telling, the basic truths, those kids would say, man, that really matters. These parents will walk out from this room saying, wow, this takeaway card they gave us, there's some things on here I could actually look at this week that could help me deal with my anger, help me kind of find a vision for my life. This stuff really matters. And that third word of community, whether it's in an adult small group or a kid small group, preschool small group, a student group, serving with people together, going to a cookout, you say, you know what? We're making some friends that matter. There's truly community here. Now there's 4 words that you're going to keep hearing ongoing here at Vision. Serve, give, connect, and invite. Because serve, that's just a huge part of our walk. There is something, I tell you, about being selfless and serving that helps shape our perspective on life. So in terms of serving, again, you see our big old chart, plenty of spots on there, but I want to show you a couple pictures, and hopefully, if you're not serving anywhere yet, it will just stir your heart. You say, man, I have got to serve. I just unashamedly say that. Because the reality is, our lid for growth will be contained by volunteers. That when I talk weekly, particularly with Caroline and with Kim, and they say, Matt, we need more small group leaders with our preschoolers, our elementary. So that's when you look at some pictures, like you see these kids that came in for Palmapalooza, and you see, sitting in small groups, you're like, those kids are being affected. And you see them having fun back there, man. There's Batman, and then there's our students. They're coming in and doing crazy stuff. But you know what? When they're having trouble in school or trouble in life, and they think of their small group leader, I tell you, serving really matters. So that table over there is a place you can stop tonight and say, hey, just tell me some more about serving with these kids, these preschoolers. Second piece, giving. See a couple pictures on this, because your giving truly matters, so that literally, somebody paid for that thing, whatever that is. Otherwise, he'd fall down. Matthew, he would fall down like that thing. Then you see, we got supplies. We got a tent. If you've ever been back at Trailblazer, there's a tent back there we built that our team has the freedom to go and do stuff because we've got some money. We don't have a lot of money. We got some money that we can do stuff like that. And we're able to take students up to places like that and say, this mountain today, King's Pinnacle, belongs to Ignite. And we say, you know what, let's hike back down and get some hot dogs and celebrate it because somebody paid for those hot dogs. That's the reality. Third piece is connecting. You can do it in small groups. You can do it when you get involved in ministry, connecting at our church. Like I said, small groups, and also ownership class coming in June, where owners, and I'll give you this real quick look about what an owner at Vision is about. An owner walks across our parking lot and doesn't think there's a close parking spot for me. An owner walks across that parking lot and says, should I pick up a piece of trash? Because I want to tell you, there are some times when I'm up here on Saturday, sweeping out that road up there, literally, because a car hit another car, and that place is a mess, and I'm like, you know what? Nobody else is coming up here today. I'm going to go ahead and sweep that up because I'm an owner. I don't deserve anything. I don't have rights. I have responsibilities. And then the fourth piece is to invite. And inviting here at Vision comes in a couple different ways. Again, because you give, we were able to go 2 Wednesdays ago next door to the apartment complex, and we fed their staff. And that was it. No agenda. We just said, we just want to get to know you. And they said, wow, man, we got 180 units of people here. We said, hey, if we get a chance to serve them in any way, we'd love to do it. They said, well, why don't you give us some of your stuff? We'll put it in our guest packet for when new people come in. I said, I like that idea. They said, yeah, we'll have some pool parties this summer. You guys want to come over and play some music? I said, I like that idea too. And so because you guys gave, it empowers us to do outreach like that, or to go across the street to Terrace Ridge and bless their staff, not because we even want them to come here, just so we can minister to the people at Terrace Ridge. Like I talked about with Southwest, that's going to be a school we have a partnership with, outreach. But honestly, the best way we'll do outreach is invest and invite. That you and me will get to know people in our community, and when the time is right, they will come and visit because you invested in them. We'll have things this summer. We'll have a pool party in August, which will double as our first baptism service. You can invite people to that. We'll have our fall series, like I talked about, on one-on relationship. There you go. Great. Taking Alicia's question out. Great. Our fall series, we're going to have one on relationships, which is a great invite series, and one on margins in life. If anybody here ever feels busy, or if you ever feel like your money is a little bit strapped, that's our margin series coming this fall. So invest and invite, because you just never know. When you invite somebody, you might end up with, so I get this right, with marshmallows on your nose. That could be you and your friend when you bring them to church. All right, so that is all the info that I want to toss out for looking forward. The last piece of looking up before we go for desserts. And hey, I understand, we go for desserts. If your babysitter's waiting or somebody's waiting, you can leave, but otherwise you can come back in, we'll do Q&A. But the motivation piece of this, it comes from Jesus' teaching when he says something real simple. He says, I didn't come for the healthy, I came for the sick. He said, just like a doctor doesn't go around looking for healthy people, he goes around looking for the sick. Doesn't mean we disregard the healthy, because you know what? Like I'm going to talk about this Sunday, God wants us healthy. And in fact, we can't do it in an hour on Sunday. That's a catalyst to our spiritual health. But Jesus came for the sick. And Vision Church is here for the spiritually sick. So as we look forward to where we're going and what we're doing, it's all built on that mission that we're going to be truly a church that unchurched people love to attend. That's our vision. That's what we're here for. And when you talk about, there we go. When you think about the cross and what it means for people in my neighborhood, that we walked around our neighborhood and put little things in their flag before Easter that said, would you come and visit us? Come and check out Vision. We even gave them a couple pieces of candy on, kind of try to win them over. And you know what, at Easter, none of them came. But you know what, 2 weeks after that, one of them came. And I even asked him, said, hey, you guys came to visit today? I didn't know who they were. I said, how'd you hear about Vision? He said, well, Matt, you guys put an invite in our mailbox. It's like, really? And then the next week, our next door neighbors came. And these people, they're coming back. And there's like 120 other neighbors in our neighborhood that we're going after. And I want us to have this vision for the sick. And I'm not calling anybody out as being sick, saying, hey, we're all sick. Until we find Jesus, and then we got a health we can work on. So that is our vision for the future. You've seen where we've been. And I hope you get to a point and say, man, I love where we're at. We got a lot of growing to do, like that tomato plant, but I love where we're at. I love where God's taking us. So let me take a second and pray. We'll get desserts, and we'll come back in for a question.